Number 7. The Zhengfa Building Fire. On the afternoon of January 19, 1966, the Little New Year's Eve, Taipei's Zhengfa district was still immersed in a lively atmosphere ahead of the holiday. The department store on the lower floors of the Zhengfa Building was packed with shoppers. Restaurants were busy preparing meals. Music thundered from the dance hall on the fourth floor, and the Zhengfa cinema on the upper levels was getting ready to welcome the evening's primetime audience. No one imagined that this entertainment complex, combining a cinema, restaurants, a dance hall, and retail shops, would plunge from prosperity into catastrophe within moments, shortly after 2 o'clock. The disaster is believed to have begun inside the dance hall on the fourth floor. An overheated neon light ignited combustible interior decorations, and the fire raced upward along partitions and decorative structures between floors. The building's exterior was wrapped in massive advertising banners and had almost no external windows, leaving the flames no way to vent outside. Instead, heat and fire energy accumulated violently within the structure. Strong winds in Zhengfa that day fed the blaze as if oxygen were being pumped directly into it. Within minutes, thick black smoke filled the dance hall and stairwells, and searing heat waves swept through the building. The Zhengfa Building had only one staircase and one elevator to begin with. Escape routes were cut off almost instantly. Many people trapped by smoke collapsed unconscious before they even had a chance to run. As the fire expanded, chaos spread to the upper floors, including the Zhengfa cinema. The theater was enclosed and lacked sufficient emergency exits. When smoke poured in, audiences rushed toward the only stairwell, only to find it already blocked by flames. The fire ultimately claimed 29 lives and injured around 25 people. Many victims were not directly consumed by flames, but died from smoke inhalation, trampling during escape, or falls while attempting to flee through windows. Firefighters mobilized rapidly after receiving the alarm. Taipei City dispatched more than 50 fire engines, hundreds of firefighters, foam fire trucks, and the highest pressure water equipment available at the time. Yet the structure of the Zhengfa Building made every effort extraordinarily difficult. With no external windows, water jets could not penetrate the interior, and due to the building's height, water streams often reached only the third or fourth floors. Inside, narrow and winding passages forced firefighters back under the pressure of dense smoke. The entire building functioned like a sealed, giant furnace, constantly driving the flames upward. Despite massive of manpower and resources, the fire continued burning for hours and was not declared extinguished until around 6 in the evening. By then, the building was almost completely destroyed, charred ruins standing like a hollowed-out shell in the city. Economic losses were estimated at up to 60 million new Taiwan dollars, an amount that shocked the nation at the time. But more unbearable than the financial damage was the fact that this disaster could have been avoided. How could a building located outside the city center, drawing tens of thousands of visitors daily, be reduced to ruins in less than 5 hours? Why did an entertainment complex meant for leisure become a death trap the moment fire broke out? The answer lay in the fact that it embodied nearly every architectural flaw of the era in Taipei. Insufficient evacuation exits, stairway designs that failed safety standards, highly flammable interior decorations, sealed exterior walls, outdated firefighting equipment, and mixed-use functions without proper regulation. This disaster was not a simple accident, but a tragedy born of a long-ignored systemic crisis. Number 6. The Luanqing Western Restaurant Fire. A late-night blaze that still carries an eerie shadow to this day. No arsonist definitively identified, no complete truth uncovered, yet it claimed 33 lives. This was the Luanqing Western Restaurant Fire that shocked Taiwanese society in 1993. At 2:17 a.m. on January 19, 1993, the Xinhua Building on Songjiang Road in Taipei's Zhongshan district was calm and quiet. Luanqing Western Restaurant occupied the first and second floors, with company offices above. Despite the late hour, the restaurant was brightly lit, with more than 70 people dining and socializing, unaware that disaster was closing in. Suddenly, a dull explosion shattered the silence. A pungent smell of gasoline spread through the air, and flames leapt up near the stage. Within seconds, small flames turned into a wall of fire that devoured the space. Staff grabbed fire extinguishers in a frantic attempt to contain the blaze, but the rapidly spreading flames were impossible to control. They immediately called the fire department and tried to guide customers to escape through a window. However, this window had never been designed as an emergency exit and allowed only awkward crawling to get out. As flames closed in and smoke pressed down from above, more than 30 people crowded toward the window, and some even jumped in desperation. Amid the chaos, screams, impacts, and explosions blended together, as if the entire space had fallen straight into hell. More deadly still, the real escape routes were completely unusable. Investigations later revealed that interior emergency exits were blocked by clutter, stairwells were filled with smoke as dense as a black wall, and firefighting facilities were either malfunctioning or insufficient. The crowd had no chance to evacuate in an orderly manner. In an extremely short time, the fire swallowed both the first and second floors. Temperatures soared instantly, and thick smoke churned violently in the confined space. By the time firefighters arrived, many of those trapped had already suffocated. This sudden inferno claimed 33 lives and injured 21 others, becoming one of the most shocking restaurant fire disasters in Taiwan's history. What made the tragedy even more disturbing was that key questions surrounding the fire were never fully resolved. Gasoline odors were detected in multiple areas. Witnesses reported hearing explosions, and the fire's development appeared highly unnatural, strongly suggesting arson. Yet police were never able to identify the true culprit. The case ultimately concluded as suspected arson, while the restaurant owner was convicted of causing death through professional negligence and sentenced to 3 years and 3 months in prison. However, if responsibility is placed solely on an unknown arsonist, the deeper meaning of the tragedy is underestimated. The Luanqing restaurant fire became a brutal mirror reflecting the glaring holes in public safety at the time. Blocked escape doors, lack of regular fire inspections, non-compliant interior layouts, over-decorated commercial spaces that became fire traps, and inadequate nighttime evacuation planning. All of these problems erupted at once in that sea of flames. It is worth noting that many dining and entertainment venues in Taiwan at the time were in similarly high-risk conditions. The severity of the Luanqing fire not only shocked the public, but also prompted the government to accelerate reviews of building and fire regulations, conduct large-scale inspections of escape routes in public venues, and increase the frequency of random fire safety checks. Number 5. The Fuyuan Street Explosion and Fire. You may have long forgotten or never even heard the name Li Jinxiong. He was an ordinary man, yet a hero of the Fuyuan Street Explosion and Fire. He rushed out of his home, knocked on neighbors' doors, and shouted desperately for them to escape. He himself, however, was caught in the explosion and toxic smoke, forever remaining in that sea of fire. At 11:25 p.m. on July 13, 1979, a 4-story residential building in Lane 403, Fuyuan Street, Songzhan District, Taipei, exploded due to the illegal storage of hazardous chemicals such as methyl ethyl ketone peroxide in its basement. Improper storage led to an explosion that ignited a massive fire. 2 deafening blasts tore through the night sky. The building was blown open from foundation to roof, leaving a gaping hole. Thick smoke and flames erupted immediately, accompanied by an intensely toxic stench that lit the night sky red. The explosion's power was almost unimaginable, reportedly equivalent to 300 kilograms of TNT. The blast and fire affected an area with a radius of about 200 meters. Doors and windows of nearby buildings shattered, and walls cracked. That night, not only was the 4-story building destroyed, but the disaster as a whole claimed 33 lives and injured 20 others. In addition to the explosion site, 20 homes were completely destroyed and 6 partially damaged, affecting at least 26 households. Rescue teams and fire brigades rushed to the scene, but faced collapsed structures, highly toxic smoke, and raging flames under extremely harsh conditions. Many victims collapsed from toxic fumes or were consumed by fire. Post-disaster investigations revealed that a company storing chemical raw materials used for plastics or styrofoam production had kept them in a poorly ventilated basement. Combined with high summer temperatures and stagnant air, highly flammable and explosive chemicals like MEKP were prone to spontaneous combustion or ignition by even the smallest spark. This was not an accident, but a clear case of human negligence and illegal storage. That night, countless families were torn apart in an instant. Some people were rescued after jumping from windows. Some were carried out of the fire, while others perished in the flames. The streets were filled with cries of relatives, anxious waiting, and scenes of smoke and fire intertwined. Despite the firefighters' efforts, toxic smoke and flames still claimed many lives or left them severely injured. For society at the time, the disaster struck like a bolt from the blue. It not only shocked Taipei, but awakened the entire nation to the dangers of residential safety, hazardous material management, and fire protection systems. Afterward, the government began revising regulations, strengthening controls on chemical storage in residential areas, and improving fire safety and emergency response mechanisms to prevent similar tragedies. Yet for families who lost loved ones and residents who lost their homes, no regulation could ever erase the pain of that night. Number 4. The Kaohsiung Zhengfa Building fire, once home to shopping centers, cinemas, and entertainment venues. The Zhengfa Building in Kaohsiung's Yinqing district was one of the city's most vibrant landmarks in the last century. As time passed, it was left behind by urban change and eventually became a so-called ghost building. At 2:54 a.m. on October 14, 2021, this forgotten structure was suddenly lit up by flames in the darkness. The fire spread with terrifying speed, starting from a small shop on the first floor. Flames raced upward along piles of accumulated clutter. The interior of Zhengfa had long lost any unified layout, turning into a maze after decades of subdivision and subletting. Stairwells were stacked with abandoned furniture and pointed toward gas cylinders. Any spark was enough to ignite a nightmare. Most residents were asleep that night and heard no alarms because the alarm system had long since failed. The firestorm devoured the space, leaving only rolling smoke flowing through the floors. After receiving the report, the Kaohsiung Fire Department dispatched 75 fire engines and 159 firefighters. They found flames so intense that approaching was nearly impossible. The building stood like a vertical furnace, forcing rescuers to advance slowly from the outside. By around 4 a.m., the fire was partially under control, and by 7:17 a.m., it was fully extinguished. Rescue teams entered floor by floor in search of survivors, only to find many had already lost consciousness in the smoke. The building was a mixed residential and commercial structure, with floors 7 to 9 densely populated and suffering the heaviest casualties. The fire claimed 46 lives and injured 41 others, making it the deadliest building fire in Kaohsiung's history. At first, it was believed to be an accident, but investigators soon uncovered a chilling cause. Police identified a woman surnamed Huang as the suspect. Angry at her boyfriend and emotionally unstable after drinking, she poured lit incense ashes onto a sofa. Before leaving, she sent a threatening message. "What you want to see, I'll make sure it happens." This reckless yet fatal act ignited the entire disaster. Still, one cannot help but ask, if Zhengfa had not been filled with so much combustible clutter, if its fire safety equipment had not been abandoned and broken, if management had not been dysfunctional for so long, might the fire have been far less deadly? Once a glorious landmark, the building had undergone countless renovations, rentals, and subleases over the years, resulting in complex resident backgrounds, fragmented management authority, and a population largely made up of vulnerable groups. The average age of the victims was as high as 62. Many, with limited mobility, were unable to escape in time at night. The people living there were already on the margins of society, and most tragically, even their right to escape was stripped away by the building's decay. After the fire, the building's blackened skeleton stood as a true ruin. Structural assessments deemed it severely damaged, and authorities decided to demolish it. Kaohsiung launched a comprehensive inspection campaign, and Taiwan proposed plans to improve aging buildings nationwide. However, the road ahead for such reforms remains long and difficult.